great. You're already doing a lot of monitor stuff. Just plug in the side stream and hand it to a medic. That would be great.
It's
GPS
mandatory
use.
for CPAP and intubation?
What?
It's mandatory for CPAP and intubation?
It's mandatory for intubation.
Okay.
But
any respiratory call, just
pretty much any respiratory call, it should be used. And for the CPAP, you really need to use the side stream, not the adapter. The adapter part doesn't really work very well.
Just use the drug overdose. It's really recommended. Drug overdose.
Yeah, which would be a respiratory call. Pneumonia. There's a lot of uses. GPS use. I think everybody kind of knows this, but a lot of people complain about it. Like, we just can't be relying on the GPS unless you're a white shirt. You don't have anybody to map you, but it will take you to the wrong place a lot of the times, so we need to be mapping better and then verifying signatures. So that's pretty much all I got. As far as the hiring that went on yesterday, I think you guys have been asking just 4 medics, 13 EMTs. They're being interviewed a week from tomorrow, and then we're going to be doing some better backgrounds through the next week, and then hopefully, and then job offers will happen by the 16th, and then the academy starts on the 30th. And then I'm hoping that more people are going to show up for CPR. We do have CPR after this, and then we have a meeting for all you CPRites after that. So Marina is going to present her dialysis support class. And you have some food too.
Yes. So anyway, I kind of got put forward for this, but I said I was going to probably teach this anyway. Basically, my first job 23 years ago was a kidney transplant unit. And so that's when I first got my exposure to what on earth do kidneys really do for you, and why do people go into kidney failure, and then learn about dialysis. And since then, I've been doing some form of kidney dialysis, whether it be peritoneal. I'm sorry, that's okay. Is it working now? Can you hear me? Okay, so anyway, so right now I still work the odd shift in the dialysis unit up in Temple, and I hear you guys talk about, like, you know, when you go into the dialysis unit, what's going on with these patients. So I thought, well, let's tell you all about it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to do the functions of the kidney, just do a quick review, what causes kidney failure, complications of actually having chronic renal failure, hemodialysis, what's that all about, what the patients are actually going through. And then we're going to go into dialysis access types, what you really need to know about them, do's and don'ts. Then get into the nitty-gritty of, like, if you're running a call on a dialysis patient in the unit, what is the most important thing to know about that patient? Also, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the dialysis units themselves, so you get an understanding of why something runs the way it does. Do a quick one on peritoneal dialysis, and then also ask if I could also look at the IV access types calls, so if you're in the issue with them, what's that all about? So quickly, kidney, 1 million nephrons, that's the functional unit of the kidney. Interesting enough, they put out, to make 2 liters of urine, you're looking at 100 to 200 liters of fluid every 24 hours pass through that filtering system. So a lot of volume going through them. So pretty much that's 20 to 25% of the rest of the cardiac output goes via the kidney. To put that into sort of like, well, what does the rest of the body do? 17% is what the liver and GI tract take cardiac output. The brain, 14%. The kidneys literally take up the most part of the cardiac output of any of the organs that we have. It goes by the renal arteries, which stem off of the aorta, bifurcate down into the femorals, and right before that, they go into the kidneys. And then end-stage renal disease occurs when about 90% of kidney function is lost. And the importance about that is because the typical question a dialysis patient will say is like, I don't understand it. They were working fine, I've been making urine. Well, the kidneys are really good at adapting as they fail, and the nephrons take over, and you can run on pretty much 10 to 15% of your kidneys. Or you can run on 1 kidney. So, and you often won't know you've got 1 kidney until it fails, and then you find out. So that's just a quick review of nephron. Like I said, about 1 million in each kidney. There's actually 2 different types of nephrons. There's 80% of them just known as the shorter nephron that lies into the outer ring of the kidney. And then there's some deeper ones that go right down into the medulla. So these are the cortex ones, and then some go into the medulla. What's interesting too is as you lose nephrons, other nephrons will actually lengthen to take up the job of the longer nephrons that are failing, because those ones are important to do with blood pressure control. Because if you think of angiotensin, we'll talk about that, it's to do with juxtamedullary nephrons. And then basically, you know, the blood goes through Bowman's capsule. You basically have, that's the main filter. And you have the loop Henle, this long loop. And the job of that loop Henle basically is it takes everything out of the blood and then it puts it back in. There's little sensors, depending on what part of the loop Henle, to look at sodium, potassium, chlorides. It's all going on there. It's the little powerhouse of the kidney. And then eventually it goes back up to the top, through into the distal convoluted tubule. It decides at that point how much volume do I want to keep in the body, how much do I want to throw out as urine, goes down the collecting ducts, and then they, if you can see on there, see how inside the kidney you have like those, where the medulla is, you have those little, what are called the calyxes, they pop down, all the urine goes through them, down into the ureter. That's where kidney stones happen, kind of in those calyxes. And then it's a sort of sign of the Bowman's capsule. The thing about kidneys to remember as well is if you have a trauma victim, kidneys lie between T12 and L3. So again, if you see blood at the meatus, you know, or you're seeing, you know, urine that's blood stained, or you've got trauma this area, you've got to be thinking kidneys probably got damaged. So yeah, most people think, yeah, just make urine, right? So fluid and electrolyte balance is one of the main jobs. Detoxification and excretion of waste products. Then we have acid-base balance, so it's as well as the lungs involved with, you know, respiratory acidosis, you also have the kidneys, which also help with the bicarb production and metabolic balance. You have blood pressure control. We also have endocrine function, the renin-angiotensin system and aldosterone system. Really important system when it comes to BP control. Red blood cells and erythropoietin is also a major function of the kidneys. And then the big one is also vitamin D and bone health. So fluid and electrolytes, so basically they're responsible for regulating the levels of fluid inside and outside the cell. There continuous exchange through the kidney cell membranes. Electrolytes such as hydrogen, sodium, potassium, chloride, bicarb, sulfate and phosphate ions, constantly going on. Then you've got hormones, antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone. They're involved in controlling fluid balance. Changes in these hormone concentrations can cause fluctuation in sodium and potassium that can lead to hypertension. So if that system starts breaking down, you then start running into more hypertension issues. So antidiuretic hormone, that's basically triggered in, so remember the distal convoluted tubules, basically the pituitary gland recognizes that it needs to hold on to fluid volume because it's seeing a drop in blood pressure because of what we call osmoreceptors in the body. It'll send out antidiuretic hormone. Basically that goes to the kidney and says, hey, hold on to water, I want to keep it. It concentrates the urine. And the opposite can happen. So when it recognizes that, no, I've got too much volume, you can start making urine. Then you might have heard of diabetes insipidus. That's basically when that system breaks down and they have really weak diluted urine and they're constantly wanting to drink water. Aldosterone, that's produced by the adrenal cortex, and that's in response again to osmolality in BP. Talking about osmolality basically means how many solutes, how many salts are in the urine, in the blood system. So if you have a high sodium, you tend to hold on to water, and then your blood pressure goes up and you've got high volumes. So high aldosterone concentration increases the water and sodium reabsorption, and then you're going to have weaker urine. So they kind of work hand in hand with each other. This system's great when we basically developed as humans because we've had low sodium diets. High sodium diets kind of really mess with this system. So the whole system, you know, I've ever heard doctors talk about this, the RAS system, renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, RAS for short. So again, it's just reviewing renins excreted by the kidneys in response to an actual or perceived decline in extracellular volume and fall in the afferent arterial pressure. What I mean by that is the artery that's leading into the kidney, it recognizes that there's a change in pressure. Well, that's great if you've got a healthy arteriole. If you've got a sclerosed arteriole, an arteriole that's been damaged by cholesterol, you've got plaque buildup in there, or you've had toxins that have damaged the cell walls, or you've got smokers or diabetics. They have a damage in that system. So what happens is sometimes they start pumping out and think, no, I need more volume, I'm not getting the pressure. Start sending off the whole RAS system. So these people will put themselves into a hypertensive state when they necessarily don't need it because they do have volume circulating. So that's why sometimes the blood pressures on kidney patients are very deranged. Like, what is going on with this patient? So yes, the renin is pumped out by the kidneys, and it goes to angiotensin 1 in the liver, and then eventually it goes in the lungs, I should say, and then that then goes to the liver, it goes to angiotensin 2. And that decreases the blood pressure by causing vasoconstriction in the peripherals. And then also it will then stimulate the aldosterone to kick in to also start holding on to volume or kicking volume out. So when you think of like angiotensin 2 inhibitors, ACE inhibitors, that's what the system is working on. So again, hypertension can stem from renin angiotensin activity, which happens in a lot of dialysis patients. So that's kind of just like, I don't know if you can see that very well, it's just basically showing all these loop systems, how they're all working. You know, you've got angiotensin 2, you're going to get increased thirst, you're getting volume. The other thing is acid-base balance. Basically, the kidneys are responsible for excreting hydrogen ions and also reabsorbing them, and then they also produce ammonia, which also helps to balance. But the big part of that is the bicarb part. So if you remember doing acid-base balance, the lungs you think of like either absorbing or getting rid of CO2 for the acidosis, and the buffer in the body for acid is bicarb. So the kidneys are involved with that. So most patients that are on dialysis are constantly in a state of acidosis. Then the one everyone thinks of is getting rid of the junk, right? The urea, the creatinine, the breakdown of metabolism, all goes via the kidneys. Anything that's being metabolized by the liver, drugs, although some drugs are actually metabolized by the kidney, but most of the liver, straight out the kidney. So if someone's got liver problems, they're probably going to end up with kidney problems too. Just quickly on that one, just interesting enough, some kidney patients, there's certain foods out there that are actually toxic that you and I can handle because our kidney can deal with the toxin. There's a fruit out there called star fruit. It's a tropical fruit. That will kill a dialysis patient. It won't kill you and I, but that will kill a dialysis patient. So this is the other one, why are dialysis patients always anemic? They produce renal erythropoietin factor, and it actually activates the erythropoietin in the liver. That then basically goes and tells the bone marrow, hey, let's make red blood cells. Red blood cells live for about 120 days before they're basically broken down again by the body. So dialysis patients, up until the production of epogen by Amgen, were in a really chronic anemic state. When I first started dialysis, it was not uncommon for dialysis patients not to get blood transfusions until their hemoglobins went into the sixes. So extremely, extremely ill. And the problem when you have anemias, chronic anemias, you get a nice big cardiomyopathic heart. In other words, they get a really big, boggy left ventricle heart. So that still goes on because there's sometimes patients who've had renal failure, not realized that they've been kind of on the cusp and they've been out there and they haven't actually realized that they've been anemic as well. And they sometimes come into us when they haven't been monitored by the primary care physicians with hemoglobins in the sevens. So now they get epogen. Vitamin D and bone health. You might have heard the patients, dialysis patients, going about their phosphate pancreas. They love their phosphate basically the kidneys metabolize the inactive form of vitamin D into the active form. So we take in an inactive form in our diet and in through sunlight, but then the kidneys actually have to activate it to make it to be usable by the body, and that's known as 125 dihydroxy D3 or calcitriol for short. And it's produced in response to low calcium, low phosphate levels, and then it acts in conjunction with parathyroid hormone, and it basically helps you absorb calcium in through your dietary tract, or it helps mobilize calcium to the bones. Well, this system all goes haywire because they're not producing it. And in the early days, dialysis patients had extremely brittle bones, absolutely awful, until they figured out, well, what's going on here? Because they would take in dietary calcium, but if the vitamin D is not there to be able to mobilize it so it can get used. And on top of that, the kidney is now also not excreting phosphate. Well, it's figured out, well, actually calcium will bind to phosphate and we can deal with the phosphate problem that way. But where do we get the calcium from? This is just a little diagram. I know it's kind of small to see, but basically the body, the parathyroid hormone kicks in. So dialysis patients have overactive parathyroid glands because the parathyroid starts saying, hey, we need calcium because calcium is a major extracellular electrolyte, especially with the heart and nervous system, and it starts pulling calcium from the bones. So there's this rapid turnover of calcium in the bones, and patients not getting anything to help that out, and they get brittle bones. They still do to effect, because if you think about kidneys doing this 24 hours a day, it's a constant monitoring system and it's regulating. So all we can do now for dialysis patients is we can do their blood levels monthly, and we can adjust their medications because they can receive like an analog of vitamin D, which can then be used by the body, but it's not as effective as what the body can do itself. Prior to phosphate binders, which you might have seen the big tablets, Foslo that patients get, or Renagel, they used to use aluminum. Aluminium, as I say in England. Works great. Problem with aluminum? Makes them go fatty. Absolutely. Brought on dementias. Renal patients that had been on aluminum were crazier than man in the moon. That's all it is. So you'd have that, and also aluminum would readily go to the bones and fill in that bone matrix where the calcium had been. Well, aluminum causes extremely brittle bones. So patients that had been on dialysis 20 years ago were having horrible, horrible bone fractures, and they're going nuts. Just some of the interesting things about vitamin D. They're learning more and more about how important vitamin D is to the body. They talk about cardiovascular health. They're actually recognizing that it actually is involved with hypertension. In the vascular system, big part is the immune system as well. It's actually involved in keeping us having a healthy immune system and fighting infections. They discovered that when it comes to what we call clonal proliferation of cells, in other words, when you get a cancer, it's usually because there's been a derangement. One cell is being multiply replicated and it forms a tumor. Vitamin D is actually really influential in preventing that proliferation of cells. So, especially in breast, colon, and prostate cells. So, dialysis patients now, they've got reduced immune systems, they've got problems with the bones, their parathyroid's going off, and they've got a really bad cardiovascular system. And the other interesting fact, we're also doing studies now about vitamin D and insulin resistance. They're actually finding in diabetes type 2 mellitus basically that if you have limited vitamin D, you're going to have more insulin resistance. And they're actually starting to give vitamin D supplements to diabetic patients to help with insulin resistance.
I feel like vitamin D has become like the magic.
It has.
Vitamin
It's just doing more and more
everything now.
studies and finding, oh, okay. It's interesting because I had vitamin D deficiency, because I did nights. I had the symptoms, I had the twitching, the post-sleeping. And I thought to myself, well, no, on my days off, I ride my bicycle. The doctor said to me, do you use sunscreen? I goes, oh yeah, 70% sometimes. If I'm on a long bicycle ride, you're not getting any sunshine. So I had vitamin D deficiency.
What are they recommending, like high dose for this?
Well, they do, and then they basically say, give yourself some sun.
Mm-hmm.
She said it won't hurt you to sit in the sun 30 minutes without you know, and she goes, get off night shift,
Yeah.
which I did.
Yeah.
You know, I just decided I need to be off nights.
Yeah.
And along with vitamin D deficiencies, you often get magnesium deficiencies.